What's up, traders? This is the Option Addict from www.optionaddict.net. Coming live this evening, bringing forth another weekly watch list. Let's jump in and get started. S&P 500. You can look at any broader market average right now in the index, and you'll see a lot of this kind of the shape that's forming on right now. There's a lot of squawk out there about the talk of this rising wedge and how bearish this is, and the fact that the market's going to come crashing down. We're going to retest the lows. And the more I'm hearing this, the more I'm thinking that really you can't trade in fear like that. So I hope you are taking advantage of the moves we've been seeing to the upside in a lot of the stocks like technology, healthcare, and what have you. You don't necessarily have to be on the sidelines waiting for that day to happen, but it is likely to come. I think from a technical perspective, the lines are pretty easy to manage here. You can see the ascending support line. Once that breaks, you can start to shift your market sentiment accordingly. And overall, I have a MACD here, and you can see that using the histogram, you can see that there's a little bit of a divergence going on, which makes sense. The fact that both our signal lines are in pretty good overbought territory from where we were back when the S&P was in the 1400 range. The higher this goes, the more overbought we get and the more likely we are to turn down. So we do know that that day is coming, but I'm not necessarily being fearful of it. So this week, and as far as economic announcements are concerned, we've got PPI coming out on the 19th. Crude inventories, just not a really busy week in terms of economic news. But I do have a lot of stocks here we're going to look at, so I'm going to go ahead and dive in. Price patterns were abundant today. Last week we saw EQ break out, and you guys know I've been following this for a while as the inverse head and shoulders looking for a continuation. It happened. We got the breakout, and I know a lot of people traded into this. That's a great move. If we do see a retest early on this week, if we get anywhere close to about 48 or so, I would try to grab some calls on this. I think this is a pretty good pattern, and in terms of from high to low, how much this stock moves, it's going to be about 5 points or so. So don't miss too much of an opportunity there. Next, I'm going to look at Shearing Plow. Yeah, I know this is really a blockbuster name here, but I still like the fact that we've got a nice little consolidation going on. Triangle pattern. We have a little bit of a breakout. If you're looking for a cheap stock, maybe something to buy shares in, or you want some calls, I'll let that be up to you. I like the pattern setting up here. Next, CYT. You guys know I've had this on the watch list a few times in the past, and we finally got that breakout. And I don't know, this price action is pretty curious. I'm looking at this, and I'm assuming we have some bad data going on here, maybe a stray tick. But if not, wow, that hit its price target in one day. And even though it closed higher, I'm going to keep an eye on this because I still think it could eventually test this low right down here at about 46. I mean, after all, that was pretty close to being the price target. Next, in the retail space, I was watching J.Crew, ticker symbol JCG. And the Yuppie trade has confirmed here. You can see the triangle pattern. It broke down. I like this little rally that we saw here right back up to the old support line. This gives you a good opportunity to sell this rip and get it as close to 28 as you can. And as that sucker starts to fall over, we're looking about a 4-point move on the stock. Next, I'm going to look at the exchanges. And you look at NMX, the old NYMEX, you can see that from a price patterns perspective, we got a pretty big breakout here of a symmetrical triangle. You can also see a pretty similar setup going on in CME. Volume starting to increase here, but we haven't quite broken out of resistance yet, so this might be the next best trade that you take. Next stock I have on the radar this week is Big Lots, ticker symbol BIG. And I'm watching this one here, and it looks like it's just getting ready to break out. I can see, maybe a little short-term triangle here, but I think the bigger formation here is potentially an inverse head and shoulders, and it's not exactly the best looking pattern, but I think this is looking pretty similar to what we saw in EQ. Nonetheless, I'm looking for a breakout here right at about 34.5, 35. What I'm thinking we're going to get here is what could be about a 10-point move over the course of the next couple months, so which definitely should provide some pretty good swing trade opportunities. Next, in terms of retail stocks, you guys remember some of the phenomenal trades we had there last week, like in Kohl's and Coach and yada yada. I'm still watching this double bottom shaping up in Tiffany, looking for a breakout of this level right through here, which we'll call 42 to keep it round. But if you look really closely within the context of this pattern in a bottom, that's normally where cool little shapes like this start to form. This also broke out of a flag pattern. So to me, this is starting to spell bullish, even though I'm not liking the volume here so far. I'm looking for a breakout. Hopefully we'll see a nice little swing to the upside. Next is Roper Industries, ticker symbol ROP. And if you look at this, you can see probably what I see, a nice little triangle. Looks like we're just getting ready to start popping out of that. So we're sitting right up against a resistance line. Nice little breakout here with some volume. Could spell a pretty big move for the stock. Next, I've got First Solar. Remember that triangle we've been trading? Well, we retested. We have a nice little shooting star formation here right at resistance. You know me, I love that setup. Easy trade to manage. Next, let's look at SYNA. Synaptics. You guys know I was following this little consolidation here, this little range. Well, the stock kind of popped out of that on Friday, so I'm hoping that move continues. To my opinion, it's not too late. You can still use this prior resistance level to manage your risk. The trade hasn't gotten too far away from that yet. Next, for my small cap stock of the week, we've got Argon, ticker symbol STST, a nice little bull flag. I've liked the way that this thing's trended in the past. And every time I find it, I look at the volume and I'm like, oh man, this thing's pretty thinly traded. But if you're looking for a cheap stock to pick up some shares on, I'd keep an eye on this. I imagine the options, if there are any, are going to be fairly illiquid, so you might want to steer clear from this one. Next is Schnitzer Steel. There was a little conversation on the blog about shorting steel stocks, and I like this move that we're seeing here, this little bear flag formation. It popped out of that on Friday. If prices start to open up on Monday, it might be a good opportunity to get yourself short here. Next is GMXR, and so we were talking earlier in the week about potentially getting long some energy-related names, and if we start to see crude oil rally, I like the fact that this is setting up a little bit, kind of an odd-looking inverse head and shoulders. But for me, I think the line to take advantage of this is going to be right at about 60, 61. So if we break above that, we get a little bit of volume there. I like the idea. Next is ticker symbol GIFI, and I've watched this stock. I'm just waiting. It is so destined to go down, but it's not happening yet. So the next shape that I see is this. I'm thinking about getting some put options here on Monday morning. I want to see how it trades with my risk managed right here at about 43, give or take, maybe 42.5. But if this thing does break, like I continue to think that it will, there should be a substantial price target to the downside. So I'm still following it. Next is Occidental Petroleum, ticker symbol OXY. Again, for another energy name in a related pattern here, we got a pretty good looking triangle. Next is Covance, ticker symbol CVD. We've got the flag formation here. Looking pretty good. Wait for a breakout of resistance to take that down. And last but not least, as far as patterns are concerned, Noble, NE. And this could be setting up for a monster bear flag as well, so this one is still on my radar. Well, folks, and as I give my final thoughts here, I'm looking forward to not having to wake up and go to work tomorrow. That's right, my first day of unemployment. So far, it's working out pretty good. But as you can imagine, I'm going to need to stay fairly active in my trading, to put food on the table. So in closing, I'm going to throw out some dips, some rips, some breakouts, some breakdowns at you. But in the meantime, this has been the Option Addict. There's my watch list. Thanks for watching.